Hey, Honey Wash Day. This is Toksa Hour. I am Maggie Ross, and I'm live from Porcupine, South Dakota, along the Porcupine Creek, where the porcupines roam. I am joined again by Chaz. Yay! We're always excited. Chaz comes to talk about all kinds of stuff. She's the massive throwdown person, big hitter.
Well, last time we talked for so long, I didn't know if you'd ever have me back. Was that was that last time we just kept going? It was just so
Yeah,
much
go
to
ahead.
talk about. Yeah.
So
But good yeah, good morning everyone. I'm just really again, thank you for inviting me. I'm in Denver, Colorado, and for those of you who went to Upward Bound over there in the Black Hills, we always would come down to Denver every year. It would be like our big trip. And so I just every time I come here, I feel like I'm a kid again, and I go to all those places they took us, and I'm excited to check out the museums. And down here at the Denver Public Library, they have a lot of artifacts from Lakota people. They're just open there to the people. So I just wanted folks to know that they can go there and find all kinds of stuff. I'm gonna check out Cheyenne River while I'm here, and just I've been trying to gather as many voices from our elders as I can, and put it out there on the radio so everyone can get it. Because our people, our people have always known. I found a book on Fool's Crow the other day, and dude was brilliant, right? And he was a man of his time, and also a brilliant thinker. And I think that our people, we have the answers. We just have to go back and listen and learn for them. So anyway, that's why I'm here, uh, and, and to do
I
something.
thought you was down there for the No Kings March all this time.
Oh no, I am not. I've been protesting since I became, since I started my professional career, and I'm not participating in that stuff. More power to folks who do, though, because um, it's you getting out there and doing that is really powerful. And so I'm not gonna criticize folks for if that was their first one. Oh my God, there's a little rabbit here checking me out while we're here, sitting over here. I'm in the park because they got good
Are you
anyway.
harassing the rabbits? Is that what you're
I
saying?
mean, I saw three rabbits yesterday too on my walk, so I don't know if maybe they're upset I'm here in town, but anyway, she seems friendly. But there was a record turnout all over the country. It's really great. It's really great. I'm glad that people are doing it. Um, I feel in so many ways though, Maggie, that it's not the right conversation right now. We need to be having conversation about are we getting gardens in? Are we preparing for the winter? What are we gonna do come winter again when we can't afford to put propane in our tanks, and it's gonna come hard. And these guys in the federal government and all these guys, they don't care. One thing about the No Kings is that it's funded by Walmart, one of the Walmart billionaires. And so they said no kings, not no billionaires, right? Like
Yeah.
we don't need billionaires, but they are manipulating us so much. And everyone from the legislature on up is just their motive is always profit, economic development, all that stuff, and just ignoring all the other stuff. It's just very frustrating, I
Always
think.
it seems like that. Always.
Yeah,
It's like never,
yeah,
never legitimately about um change, about
yeah,
the middle class or those that are in poverty or anything. It's always about let's to me, sometimes I feel like it's a distraction. So they're
yeah.
gonna do this, get involved in the protests as a distraction so that we're focused solely on Donald Trump, and we're not focused on, so we're saying no kings, and then you'll get the GOP or MAGA or whatever, and they're saying, well, we don't have kings here. We haven't had a king since July 4th of 17, whatever, 75 or what,
Ye-
74, I can't remember. Anyways.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then,
When the wealthy people of America didn't want to pay their taxes anymore, Maggie, it wasn't like,
mhm,
we were all fed up and we wanted freedom because we don't have freedom. Those guys just wanted to keep their money. And, the elite I've been thinking about this, and I just got this book called The History of Science. But, you know, white people, the concept was created by rich people so that the poor white people, the poor, they would work, to keep the black people down, to keep the indigenous people down. Like that was a decision made by the elite, the billionaires, the parasite class, the Epstein class, and we're still living under that. We're still living
mhm,
under that idea that rich people, especially men, can do whatever the hell they want. They can rape whoever they want. We know that now. And someone, do you watch Professor Chang, the guy who's on
yeah,
YouTube or whatever
yeah,
it is? Yeah, I like him. I like him. There's some things I don't like about him, but uh, I like him because he went into these families that have for 5 centuries now continuously, and even some of them existed in the Roman times. Like, so these
yeah,
guys have been
yeah.
around for so long, and we all are just, the cattle that they're that they're using, and that's why I think things like No Kings is it's good, but also it's not good because people don't understand that the left and the right are the same shoe, right? And so people don't have a class consciousness, and barely want to talk about racism. And so, like, there's no, like, the liberals, I think, let's all get along, let's all get along. I did that for so long out in Rapid City, and for 20 years spent cultivating relationships with uh, progressive liberal white women, and now I don't even talk to none of them because they're all racist. And so, like, what are we doing trying to fit into a system that that is contrived under the delusion of white supremacy, right? And so that's kind of my frustrations a lot about that. But how can you teach people that? We've been doing around this for a long time, and it's hard. Our people have so much on their plates, they can't even figure out what they're gonna, if they're gonna have enough money to put supper on the table, let alone you know figure out class consciousness and understand that,
I know.
right. I mean, it's complicated, and I wish that more people would trust our people, right? I just wish our people would trust ourselves. You're a brilliant woman. I've been studying and doing this stuff for 20 years, and 25 years, and instead of them taking the guidance of people who have been in it and know it. These guys are just like, any old whoever stands up there. That's how they do our politics. Like, they take these IRA leaders who don't know nothing about nothing, take them to
Mm,
DC. All of a sudden, they're big national leaders, and the tribes involved in all this stuff. And it's like, it's very it's all about perception and understanding. Right now, that's the revolution. Like, whose whose propaganda do you believe? And are you capable of discerning the lies? And that's what we should be teaching our kids. I hope that's what, and I do think that our, as Indian kids, we all grow up very, very smart. We know federal law, we know all this stuff. We grow up, very smart. So I feel like um, the poverty stuff, the generational poverty and the trauma, that stuff really gets in the way of us creating sovereignty, true sovereignty. And I wish we could get that to that point, you know.
yeah, I think so too. I was just reading up this article in Substack on Iran. And so Iran is utilizing the art of war, is what they're saying. You know, it was written back in 1050, you know, or something like that. Something. Anyways, it was written a long time ago in the 5th century. And so I was just reading up on that and thinking about how Iran is just really they're the underdog here, but it seems like because they're using those strategies from the art of war that they're being effective, right? They're not taking out American military like you know, like in a full dogfight. They're doing it strategically, and so people are feeling it. And now people, politicians, whatever, are starting to feel a little not so supportive of Trump because it's election time. And so Trump, thinking that he was doing this and was going to get his GOP all reelected, it is basically backfired on him. And so nobody's talking nitty gritty of it.
Oh no, you missed it this weekend. The CPAC, they were over there, and the deputy attorney general was like, "If we don't, you know, we're all gonna get indicted," as he said. If we don't win that election, they know that Trump is taking shit. And you know, I'm such a you know, I used to be so nice, but now I'm just mean on Facebook. But I went yesterday and they at the Rapid City Journal, they put something about the Iran war or something. And I went and I tagged Senator Thune and I tagged Senator Rounds and I tagged Dusty Johnson. And I said, oh no, it was about the SAVE Act. That was I just get fired up about the SAVE Act. That's just, oh my God, those guys are. And I said, I tagged them all and I said, you all should be arrested for advocating for this. And I said, you guys picked the wrong horse. I said, now look at you. You got orange dust over your crusty orange dust all over your skinny ass lips is what I said. I was so pissed, you know, because that SAVE Act, you know, the only person, and since I've been doing the native vote in South Dakota, and there was one person who messed up a voter registration, I remember once, but the ballots, John Thune's nephew did it, his very first election, you know, and John Thune was accusing Tom Daschle of stealing votes down in Pine Ridge. He had a mob of people outside of his office in Rapid City the night before the election accusing Tom Daschle of stealing votes. John Thune has been fomenting race wars and this bullshit since he started. And I looked up something the other day, Maggie, and it was just an unbelievable number. But it's true because that guy's a grifter. You know, he was in Pressler's office. He learned how to go there. He learned how to kiss ass and get money, and he did that. And he learned how to win elections and lie to the people and grift for his family. But he, since he's been in office, there has been a 700% increase in children dying at school because he's with the NRA, and the NRA, you know, is run by Russia. And Russia's been putting money into these MAGA Fruit Loops for 20 years. And that's why we got Russia on one hand, running these MAGA, creating these MAGA people, supporting people like Steve Bannon and Jeffrey Epstein. And then we got Israel on the other side, you know, funding people like Kamala Harris and, you know, that Anthony Blinken, who was Biden's Secretary of State. Who said, "Oh, yeah, I saw him someone asked him, you know, about his legacy, and he was like, well, if we knew what we knew in the looking back at it, we would have done things different." No, you wouldn't have. You guys, that was your goal. Your goal was to destroy Gaza, and look, you did that, and you destroyed Rafah, and now you're attacking, a girls' school in Iran. And thinking that you guys are the moral, police of this country, And China's turning against them. Russia's turning against them. The United States and Israel. And I'm happy to see it. You know, I kind of feel like Trump is gonna make us, we're already in a world war, right? World War III. We definitely are in that war. It's the conservative, and it's what the war is. It's us against the parasitic class, right? That's what the war is happening. We just don't know it, because we're so poor down here. We don't even know really what the fight is, but they're that's why they're building those camps. That's why they're building those prisons, along, wherever. That's where they're buying all that stuff, because they know that eventually the people are going to figure it out, and they're going to, revolt. And look how many people were out this week. I wish they would have been breaking windows, though, Maggie. You know me. I think that people. I think white people need to be breaking windows and paying reparations and slapping the shit out of their racist aunties. I swear to God. White people need to, you guys got to differentiate yourselves between the bad ones, right? There's racists out there, and those guys you can't even fix them. But there's a lot of people who are just ignorant and full of propaganda, right? Those racists, we could, put them on Epstein Island and let Trump go to town on them. Because he's not, he's a racist too, sure, and everyone knew it. He used to read Mein Kampf.
Bragged about it. Just watching this, or listening, I guess. I'm lazy these days. I'm lazy these days where I don't actually do all the reading. I push the play button and then I let somebody read it to me. So I don't have to read, but sometimes the play button doesn't work, so I have to read. But anyways,
that's not lazy. That's old ways. Old ways. We used to learn by listening. That's old ways.
Yeah. That's what we'll call it, old ways.
Yeah.
Anyways, it was watching this or listening. I was listening to this article, and it was about how MAGA has gone so far right. And it's talking about like their hate for women is so bad now that they're really getting into a place of homosexuality, basically. And so that's what they promote. And so they go to Nick Fuentes. You're way over there with Nick Fuentes, and that's what he is. And he hates women, and he just keeps pushing all of this. He hates Israel as well. He's a white supremacist, and in a white supremacist, I guess, the power of the man. So just men love men, or we only like ourselves, so we can only be with each other, kind of thing.
Well, that's the patriarchy. The patriarchy is every male bows down to the one powerful man. It's like everyone's got to, everyone's here, worshiping Donald Trump and giving him whatever he wants. That's the patriarchy. And it's a perversion, right? We know that because, we were raised, now I do think the patriarchy is really toxic within Indian country. Like there's some meetings and people that, oh my God, get a clue, dude. No one wants to even no one's even on your same page. And so I feel like a lot of those but men and women create the patriarchy, right? Men and women create the patriarchy. It's not just men. Everyone thinks, oh, it's men. They gone this far. And you're right about Fuentes. I think he does like boys. Which is fine, which is fine and great. You can do whatever you want. It's just that they hate women so much that that's what they're doing. And that's like Joe Rogan and all those guys. They're all very, there's so many
people, right? It's hypocritical because then they get out all of this stuff against the rainbow people and all, they're saying all of these things about homosexuality, just going off, but yet they're closeted. Yeah. So it's like, just come out. And I think Nick Fuentes has come out, and then this is really interesting. This is really interesting that when when you go back, and so I was saying this about how they took Native American concepts about gender, right? Like, so using what we know about Wink Day, taking those concepts and putting it into their narrative and saying, see, Native Americans, they all have this, different idea about gender and whatnot. And then they go back to Adam and Eve, and they talk about how what do you call that? So because according to the Bible, they took Eve from the rib of the man, meaning that they're the same or unisex or whatever like that. And so the promotion then of that saying that was first, that
Yeah,
existed first or whatever.
I think the Bible has been written to enslave women and to basically erase the duality and to make men that's the authoritarian, that's the warrior, we do it my way or the highway. And so many people prescribe to that authoritarian stuff. A lot of people, some people in my family think like that, that kids are, you can spank your kids and you do all that stuff, and that'll teach them right, they justify abuse the way the nuns and the priests and all that kind of stuff. That's why the patriarchy exists. It's because it's beaten into people, right? The people, this is their fear-based stuff. Men from the very beginning are learned that they have to be macho in front of other men. They can't show emotions, and it cripples them. And it cripples them. Most of I don't trust a lot of people, because of the patriarchy, and not just men and women. And the patriarchy and white supremacy go together. So if you're able to think that other people of color aren't human, then you're a racist. If you're able to think that a woman isn't a human, isn't, and that's truly where they go to. They don't believe that women are men, and they don't so they don't worship them. That's a real thing that these guys are doing. It's toxic, and it's been running the country for 500 years, and they've been violently destroying people and ideas who think the opposite. Think about the witch burnings. They were burning those women who had property and who weren't kowtowing to the patriarchy. Since the very beginning, they keep information, and I think the Bible too has, because there's a theory, there's all the conspiracy TikToks, but there's a Bible a conspiracy TikTok too, and one of them is that the Bible was written to get rid of God's wife El, who was like El there, and El is like in the Bible like El. They talk about it, and the it's all about control, right? So that's why propaganda exists, and the Bible and religion is all propaganda, and it's all just a story that they tell to control us and to make us afraid, right? Men are really afraid of other men not liking them or not. That's what they think about a lot of times. Anyway, I was raised by some Lakota, my Lakota aunties, who ran their houses and were whatever. They were equals to their men, and their men treated them like that. And my dad raised us like that too. He treated us as equals. But that's not the way a lot of families, exist, men and women nowadays. And in American culture, that patriarchal head of the authoritarian, that lifestyle exists in a lot of families. Do it my way, or you're going to get beat. That's and that's the problem. That's why we don't. I mean, do we, can we even say that we exist as a culture anymore if the majority of the people, that are enrolled members of the Lakota Nation think like white people? and they want to be capitalists and they want to do all this stuff. Money's fake. All this stuff is fake that they tell us. You have to do this, you have to be afraid, all this stuff. You have to work 8 to 5. These are all just big lies, but we do it because that's the system that we were raised in, right? But it's not, it doesn't, it's a it's a disastrous system that destroys souls, right?
I was saying that I was just watching a thing, like a documentary on coins. And then like they're not even really made out of the copper. It's not really made out of the silver anymore. None of that. It's like a spray coat. So I'm like, it's probably just really hard plastic.
That's right.
And we're all thinking that we got a true penny and a true. That's not.
It's all just made up stuff. And now, like, since they went off the gold standard, it's not even based on anything, right? There's not, like, our standards are weird. Like, our whole economic system is like, and I think that's what's happening, Maggie, too, with Iran. They're trying to get rid of the banks. The banks, these 13 families that control the world, they want Iran to be on their banking system. And there's only like 7 countries in the world that don't go on that banking system. And one of them is Venezuela. And that's, now where are they? They're going to be coming up under that. The other one is Cuba. They're starving them out too, which is crazy. I don't know if you heard, but what's happening over there. But Russia did drop some fuel and some stuff to them yesterday with the support of a submarine. They drove right in there to Cuba and helped those people. So good for them. But it's an embarrassment what we're doing to Cuba. Like, why we just do things. Our federal government is so cruel. Like, we've killed millions and millions and millions of people over the course of the United States existing. Just like policies like that, like just going into everywhere and destroying their national resources. The Philippines, I was reading about, that war the other day. Oh my God, like they just went into this little place and slaughtered 50,000 people, Maggie. 50,000 people just because they existed in that place that they were. And, a lot of people are figuring out that we're the bad guy, right?
The level of inhumane behavior and all of the actors today, it's really disgusting. So like, it's just okay to go and starve these people. It's okay to cut everything off and do that, and not to bat an eye. And then for them to foolishly think that we're all just going to be okay with it because we've been watching Gaza. Everybody's been watching Gaza for 3 years now, watching that, and then watching it now in Lebanon, watching it in Iran, and then thinking that everybody was going to be okay with Venezuela. Nobody was okay with Venezuela. Nobody was okay with the ICE. Nobody's okay with Cuba. And yet they're still building like this empire, thinks that it's so untouchable, and it doesn't even realize in its own like ego that it is failing and it's gonna die. It's collapsing because nobody's supporting it. Even Spain went out and made a different deal with Iran to get oil.
That's right. And it's like I put on one of my trolling posts on John Thune. I said, you're Trump is like Icarus. He's Icarus. I don't know if you know that Greek mythology, but the guy he wanted to fly, so he built himself some wax wings, some feathers. He made them out of wax, and he could fly. And he got real hubris, and he got real egotistical, and he flew right next to the sun, and he melted and he fell. That's what's happening. Like this, these guys are all they're too. Trump destroyed the grift, right? He destroyed the grift. He's supposed to be like John Thune, keep himself like whatever. But Trump saw the grift in politics and he jumped on it, and we have to acknowledge that it was a grift because Epstein and Bannon and all these guys all just been playing this with this billionaire money in our faces for, all this time since Reagan. Reagan was an actor, right? He was an actor. They elected him. They put him in that position so that the military industrial complex or the corporations could continue, and they destroyed America with Reagan on back. Those conservatives, they're so afraid, and maybe it is a little bit white fright, right? They're afraid of being replaced. Well, white people don't exist. It's a made up thing that the rich people made you think that you're white. You don't even that
Even in the colonization of the world, you look at that, how it doesn't care. It doesn't even matter the color of your skin. They conquered everybody. They went
That's
through
right.
and they decimated whoever they came into contact with. And then they even talk about like the Rothschilds. And so it's actually the Rothschilds who is funding all of this. And so they're the ones that created the New World Order and the
That's
bank through
right.
the banking system. And so they own all of the banks. And so you go back to Libya when they what they did to Gaddafi. That happened because he created his own central bank and then had
That's
his
right.
own gold and all of that. And so there's a memo. They say if you go to the Washington, go to, I forget, DOJ or not DOJ, the website anyways, it's a government website. It actually has the letter that was sent to Hillary Clinton telling her. And so then they went over there and then they bombed him out for 7 months. And so that's kind of what I think Trump and them are thinking about with Iran, is that they're just going to carpet bomb them. They're just going to bomb them out for 7 months and Iran is going to cave. But then they didn't realize that Iran then, they were using the art of war, the be patient part, but they were too patient, sitting too, so it made them look passive. And so then they changed course. And then now this is what they're doing, is they're going after things that make you and I hurt. And so when we think about that, bringing that all the way back to the reservation, like the poor people are not really affected. We're not
No,
suffering because we already have nothing. So we're
that's
not being
right.
affected by this. And so
That's right.
we're probably all just lollygagging around like, nothing to do, nothing to see here. It's because we're
It's
not being affected because we're already poor. We're already at the bottom. The people that are being affected is that middle class.
That's right. That's exactly right, Maggie. They're destroying the middle class, and they have been for the last, all this long. The meritocracy, all of it is just a made up lie. And we live and we go to these bullshit jobs. That's a really great book, by the way. David Graeber wrote it. I don't know if you know about David Graeber, but
No, I'll have to look at it.
oh, he's a brilliant guy, but he's passed on already. But he
Oh, what's going on here? Is it you? Is it me? Where? Maybe it's me. I don't know. I don't know if it's you or me, but I'm gonna switch over to my personal hotspot. So see if it's me. But it might be you. Oh, it was her. It was her. So it caused me to hurry up and switch out. All right, so I don't need to do that. So we'll wait for her to come back, but I do need to disconnect my Wi-Fi from my phone. Anyway, she was on fire there. Darn it. Messed this up. That's true, Sean. Gas prices are affecting us, but then if you don't have a car, it's not. Everyone I don't know. I think my answer to all of it is to go and plant your garden. Like we need to be planting our gardens right now. We need to be thinking about how we're going to grow our own food. Do those things. Those are important. I don't know if Chaz is going to make it back on. That's funny. That's funny. She dropped out. See if she comes back. Did I drop out too? No. Oh my goodness. Oh, here she comes. I don't know what happened to you.
I can't see you. I'm sorry, my phone got too hot, and so my
Oh,
phone shut down. Yeah, no, I was sitting. It was sitting in
the sun.
in the sun. Yeah, and so everything is just way too hot now. Oh Lord. Anyway, sorry about that.
To
But
hit your AC.
I don't know. I don't know who. Yeah, the car's not running. I just opened it up though. Anyway,
Oh.
sorry about that. Now I'm now I'm really hot. So anyway, yeah, I think that it's what really makes me happy is that um, we're not them, and we're gonna be okay no matter what, and it's gonna look a little different. And I think remember someone had the prophecy of the Rainbow Warriors at this time that would come out, and I think our tribes our people are gonna look a little different because some people aren't gonna understand the fakeness of that world, and they're going to miss it, and they've been traumatized into that programming, and so they're just not going to you know they're not going to go forward because now I think is the time for things are really like awakening. We're knowing about this stuff. We never knew about the Rothschilds and how they had controlled everything, and before, and the internet in the last 10 or 15 years has just given us all kinds of stuff that we didn't know already with the WikiLeaks and all this stuff. But it's the same old thing, the Panama Papers, like we've been knowing that nefarious people are at the helm, and now it's like they're gonna destroy it because that's what nefarious people do. So I don't know. I hope America survives. But I know we're gonna survive, and I think that as Lakota people, we just need to double down and reconnect with what matters, and focus on our own people and stop trying to save the planet and just try to save our tribes, and our reservations, and go back to what matters, because I think a lot of times, because we're so few of us, if we're involved in a movement or something, like right away they put the Indian at the front, and so we have to like bear the burden of non-Indian um, you know revolution, right? Like we have to then tell these guys what they need to do, and this is how it happens, and all that stuff, and frankly that's wiping a lot of us out. We just need to go home and plant our gardens and worry about the things that we can control. I keep going on about that garden, but that's what our ancestors did.
I was saying that too whenever you went off. I was saying that would be the solution, is your garden. Plant your garden and do what you can to become self-sufficient. Sean in the chat was saying about gas prices, so now you might have to go back to riding horses. And so I think this is one of the things, like the collapse of the billionaires as well, because if we can't purchase, if we don't have, we are no longer a consumer society. So then we're moving back to like where things have to last. You have to make things last. And so that's maybe right. You're not buying clothes every 2 weeks, because some people do that. Some people are able to afford to not have to put their clothes away in the spring for their winter clothes and then pull out their spring and summer clothes. Some people still live in that cycle, but there's some people that do not live in that. And they're able to every year buy a whole set of new clothes for winter, for each season. They're able to do that and give away their clothes or whatever they do. And so there's a lot of things, even so many things made of plastic these days that just break. And so people are going to start maybe being very, well, if that's just going to break and I'm not going to be able to afford to buy that, then I might have to buy something else, or I can't use that. I can't use carpet. I have to go back to hardwood floor. our regular flooring because I can't afford a vacuum. If they're not going to make a quality vacuum and they want to sell me a flimsy plastic vacuum for $200 and it's going to break and the second time around, or the belt gives, or all of these different
That,
things, that it's kind of like going back. And I think maybe I mean, as Lakota people, we were probably always that way because we had to, make our own clothing. We had to go and tan hides and, do all of that stuff to make usable things out of stuff. And the Great Depression did that as well. It forced people out of, because in the 20s, everybody was like da 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 da, the glam of the 20s. And so everybody then goes into conservation mode. And so
that's
that's
right.
probably where we're heading now, is conservation mode. And so there's not going to be that type of money to just be thrown around. And so we'll eventually be out of jobs. The job market's going to tank. Everything's going to tank because people just loved Donald Trump and thought he was going to be the best answer. And then shame on the Democrats. They put forward Kamala Harris thinking she is going to be the champion, but we'd be in the same damn situation we're in right now. People think it'll
Yeah.
be different, but it would just only be different in the way that she might have wordsmithing. And then she may not be out there saying all this dumb stuff Donald Trump says, but it's the same actions would still be going on. We'd
Oh, for
still be
real.
doing this to Iran.
Definitely. The Democrats have kept us sated. And they just, oh, okay, well, we get this. Well, what they don't give us nothing. The whole time Obama was in the office, 8 years, we didn't get shit. He didn't do anything on climate change. He gave the banks, a bailout that was that they, he gave us this ugly ass healthcare, and we lost the right to have our medical, choices as women. So what did the Democrats do to us? Nothing. And at least when the Republicans are in charge, they do what their people want them to do. The Democrats are just like, sadly, incompetent, and that's why they lost to a clown. And how embarrassing for them. There's that consultant class that runs politics that is just so toxic. And like and a lot of Indian people, nationwide Indian people are just, dragged around by this consultant class, and they think that they're involved in making these decisions and they're part of it. No, they just show up when they are asked to, and then they're the face of the effort. And I hate that because our people need to be more circumspect, and we need to not be endorsing people. I don't go nowhere no more. I used to go out and support everyone all the time whenever someone's doing something. But guess what? I'm setting boundaries with myself, because if you're not doing stuff that I respect and support, I'm not going to be copping for you publicly. Like a lot of times we do that, and that's really destructive, because we have to we show people how to treat we by our being with people and doing their stuff, we are we're endorsing them, right? And so everywhere I go, whenever I'm talking about getting the vote out or whatever, I'm saying I don't like Democrats. I'm saying we need to participate in the process, as and I've been an independent since 2004, since Daschle went on his big thank you tour after he lost, and he didn't even know how to say Wopila. He was going Wopila to all the Indians. And I was like, dude, you were in there for 26 years. You don't know how to say thank you. I was just, at that point, I was like, Democrats are trash. And then Obama gave us what he did. And Stephanie Herseth, voted against healthcare, because guess what? She's got healthcare. She's a woman of means. Her family's had a lot of good healthcare, and good for her. And doing what she's doing, hanging out with all the elite, the petite bourgeoisie, is that what they're called? Yeah, and down with them too, man. Like I'm not even. I used to be one of them, Maggie, and I do apologize to the world all the time about, thinking that that me being in places was me representing my people. It wasn't. That was a wrong thing for me to do. But the first time I was ever called a leader, it was by white people, and they were like, "Oh, you're a great leader of your people." And I was like, "Well, I'm doing what I can, but my ego was like, oh God, I'm a leader of my people." And I wasn't even a leader of my people. I was just too young, and they just brought me out and made me act like, the leader. They just, whatever. White people use you. And oh, by the way, I wanted to talk about Sam, my friend Samuel. There's two Lakota men running in districts out in Rapid City. District 32, Samuel Hare Jr. is running, and hopefully he's got his petitions out. And then there's another young guy in 34, I think, and I honestly don't remember his name, but he's one of your people. He's Noglala. And I think Samuel is from Crow Creek or Lower Brew, one of those guys. But anyway, they're jumping in, and they're gonna go.
They're running for what state office?
Yeah. And so in 32, that's a seat that he can definitely win. So I hope folks in Indian or in Rapid City are gonna be supporting him. And he's a young man. He's sober.
The biggest thing people need to do is if you're a felon and you've done your time and you're off paper, you have fines, you should start paying on your fines, because that's what's going to keep you from voting, from getting registered to vote, is that you still owe fines. And so
that's right.
Strategic about how we do this, because if you're a felon, as long as you can go back and you can get registered to vote, but they do not let you register to vote if you still owe them money. And so
see, I didn't know that. I thought
we should go out and raise money to kind of help people pay their fines.
Oh, well, me, I lost all hope in the Indian Collective when they raised that $3.1 million to get that guy out of jail, just that one guy. And all those other Indians, all those other Indians are sitting in jail. Shit, they could have let everyone out of there. But no, they're just thinking about that one dude. And
then they could have done that too, paid off everybody's fines, and then you got a bunch of Indians voting in Rapid City, qualified voters. It's just like all of this stuff. But yeah, I get that. Like it's the same thing, Chaz.
The patriarchy.
I come from a different place. So I'm not, so I don't fit in the Democratic elites, nor did I try to. I didn't even fit in the Democratic mediums or the lows, but I was trying to hang in there with them. And mostly just because, that was our choice. Either you're Republican or you're Democrat. And I'm neither of them. And so I left the Democratic Party over Gaza. I'm like, that's it. I can't do it anymore. Like was threatened for years. I'm just going to get out of this party. But I didn't do it because I systematically see, okay, well, we got to get people elected and blah, 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 blah. So I played the game. And then I just said, no, I'm out. I'm going to either just get off your team and just go play on another team. So now I'm independent, like an independent res ball, right?
Yeah. No, I think we should start the Buffalo Party, or we should do our own Indian party, and make those guys, the Democrats, kowtow to us, because when we're part of them, then the Democrats are represented. The first time I ever went to a Democratic national or South Dakota convention, there was a guy getting up there giving a speech and talking about how we got to get the native vote out. Do all this stuff, and he said, well, we got to do something, let's put on a fee. And I'm like, dude, no, we're all chepa, and none of us really need to eat anymore. Like, come on, have you noticed that? But what we need you to do, Democrats, is work on our issues, right? Work on the freaking gerrymandered legislative districts. you could make independent districts, and you could do that instead. Montana has independent districts. They're drawn by a commission appointed by the governor, and it's an independent district. And guess how many Indians that they have in the legislature? They have more they have like 14, I think. It's just a huge amount of number. And because the white people in Montana saw the benefit of having an engaged Native community. The white people in South Dakota are way more racist, I think, and so like they want to have an Indian who takes care of the Indian folks. They don't want to attempt to deal with the complex nature of Indian country. They'll just hire some people to do it. And remember last time they hired someone who was a member of the party, who did the Democratic Party Native vote, and then but didn't really do anything to help us. When I was running Carl's campaign, didn't help us at all. And then it's immediately after the election switched parties. So and the Democrats don't know people in Indian country, so they think that any Indian that they meet knows how to do the Native vote, knows how to get people out to vote. That they think that any Indian that they meet is a leader of their people, right? And so they can do those things that they don't even want to do. So, it's. I think white people should just work on the issues of human beings. Of we should all be able to live peacefully. We should all be able to have our needs met, and we should all be able to be safe. And those guys, they don't care about that. They care about building prisons, and they care about reinforcing the delusion of white supremacy and the liberty.
Yeah, I think so. You look at like even Tim Johnson. Tim Johnson put so much effort into the Native vote, and then it turned out for him. And then nobody's been able to replicate what he's done. And most of it is because Tim Johnson spent a lot of time with people, like building relationships. And so there were people that were excited. Yeah, I'm going to go out and do this for him. They didn't care if they got paid or anything. They just had the relationship with him. If you wrote to Tim Johnson, he would write back these long letters, and I would do this to him. I'd be writing about concerns going on, and he'd write back, and then he'd send me all the documentation that I talked to so-and-so, and this is the letter I'd get back a packet. I would get back a packet of all of the things that he did. I just loved Tim Johnson.
Me too, Maggie.
John Thune used to do that when he was in the House.
Mm-hmm.
So if I wrote to John Thune, he would do the same. He would tell me everybody he's talked to and whatnot, and then this would be the best advice, next steps or whatever. But when he became Senator Thune, all of that went back to it's an same thing that Daschle did. He would say it's an administrative thing. It's outside of my scope. I'm just a senator. I just do legislation kind of stuff. And they were the two most powerful. Daschle was one of the most powerful men. Thune is third most powerful person in politics.
That's right. He is. And he has been the whole time he's been in office. And guess what? The kids dying, kids being slaughtered in schools has increased over 700% since his leadership. That's what John Thune has done for America. And don't forget that. And because he's a facade, right? They're all facades. The CIA is creating these consultant class, the petite bourgeoisie, whoever it is. These guys are all, manipulating the narrative and crafting, the message so that they can get their voters out. And yeah, I agree that Tim Johnson, reached out better too. But that election in particular, that 2002 election where he won it at the last minute, there was a lot of organizing in Indian country that year. A lot of people got Tim Johnson elected. and Tom Daschle thought that we were going to do the same thing for him. But guess what he did? He didn't hire any Indians to work his native vote. Everyone that was in that campaign office that John Thune brought his mob to was from outside of South Dakota. The only people talking about that mob is me, and I saw it, and none of those people still talk about it. We should absolutely be talking about political violence. There was an assassination of 2 people in Minnesota last year. I mean, the violence is they're going to continue to kill as many people as they can. They're letting the students bear the brunt of the white male, replacement hatred. Those are white males going into schools, killing brown people all over the nation, and they're just letting it happen because they don't want to have a conversation about reparations. And I just finished this book called Another Slavery, and they talked about how reparations. I probably was reading it last, but I'm just so amazed by it. The way that when slavery ended, the cops just stepped up, and the cops just arrested all the people and would keep them in jail, in working farms, all that kind of stuff for years, and actually treated them a lot worse because they weren't property owned by someone. So someone didn't care for them. These cops just beat the crap out of people, would steal them, would, hold people for no reason. And that's why America needs to do reparations, and America needs to have a real conversation about the patriarchy and white supremacy, because you cannot start something on the blood of our ancestors. And
and I would say too, in Daschle, the Oglala sat down. We weren't doing it because at that time when we had just gone through the takeover, and we seen the amount of money that went to Daschle from our general fund. And then we also saw what he did. He would not help us prosecute or dismantle what was going on in our government, the level of corruption. So then people just sat down. They weren't going to do it because he was all backing them. And then he told the feds, don't do it, don't whatever, all this stuff. So we sat down. Nobody over here we're like, yeah, well, no, I ain't voting for him.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say one good thing, but Chaz, we're up on our hour. I gotta get on the road. So I wanna have you come back again. If you can come back next Sunday, that'd be good.
I will, and I'll hopefully be home, and I won't have a technical difficulties in the middle of it. No. I know I will have technical difficulties. That's just the way it goes. But thank you for having me on. Take care, my girl. See you.
Yeah, we'll talk to you again.
Bye. Yeah, bye.
Drive safe.
All
right. All right. I'm sorry about rushing that to a close. I actually have to get on the road myself, so I just wanted to wrap it up. So that was good. That was Chaz Jewett, you guys. And she joined us. She said she was live in Denver. So that's where she is. And I'll be back next week. So you guys have a good rest of your day. Have a great week. It's supposed to be pretty summer or springishy here in South Dakota. So hopefully it's the same elsewhere. Except for down in New Mexico, it's probably going to be 500 degrees or something I saw. Anyways, you guys.